I welcome our Honorable MD Madam, eminent speakers from industries, industry heads, our Gujarat Gas industrial customers, and lot of CNG station franchisee owners are also there. So our business stakeholders and other friends from the industries. Today is a historical day. Exactly 66 years before, our proud state Gujarat was born. આપણા ગુજરાત રાજ્યનો સ્થાપના દિવસ આજે છે અને એ દિવસે જીએસપીસીના સેમિનારમાં આપ સર્વનું સ્વાગત કરતા હું હાર્દિક લાગણી અનુભવું છું. વેલકમ ઓલ ઓફ યુ. Now I will request our honorable speakers to please come on the stage. First, I will request Amit Kheraji. Amit Kheraji is a senior partner, McKinsey Consultants. Shri Divyesh Desai ji, he is advisor IMA, ex-Shell. I request Basit ji, CEO, IOCL Adani. I request Digvijay ji, he is head, government and corporate policies, delivery. I request Honorable MD Madam to join us. Let us welcome with a round of applause. I request Devendra Agrawal ji, our AD Gas Business, to welcome an MD Madam. I request Alkesh Desai ji, Zonal Head, to welcome Divesh Bhai Desai. I request Amitabh Ranjan sir to welcome Shri Basit Dolakia ji. I request Vikas Gangal ji to please welcome Shri Digvijay Singh ji. I request Dharmesh Sheller to please welcome Shri Amit Kheraji. Thank you. Now I will request Amit Kheraji to start his moderation. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish. Now, this is a topic, as I was thinking about the topic, I realized, I remembered, I think in 2014-15, our visionary PM at that time saw the potential in gas. And उन्होंने हमको बोला 15% हमारी primary energy का should come from gas. Again, we all who have spent so much time in the industry always thought 15%, ये कैसे होगा? But I think he saw, I think Gujarat has always shown us the way. And the events over the last, I would say, 2-3 years, especially in the city gas industry and especially in the last month or two, I think potentially show us a path. कि ये 15% शायद achievable है, हो सकता है. And no better panel than to talk about this, कि gas को transition fuel की तरह, how do we grow, how do we get it to 15%. So it's a great panel, so I look forward to moderating this. But what we will do is, we will just ask each of the speakers to first come and share their overall thoughts on this, and I would start by requesting Avantika ji to come and share her thoughts.
Thank you, Amit. First of all, I'd like to wish my fellow panelists, the members of the audience, a very happy Gujarat Foundation Day. Today, in the vibrant Gujarat's Surat edition, I believe there's this is the best time. I'm referring to the current geopolitical uncertainties and the scenario that we are facing as an industry. And the best place, that is South Gujarat and Surat, to talk about the subject of today's seminar, which is natural gas as a transition fuel for growth. Like Amit just mentioned, I believe the current geopolitical crisis, or also the dual blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and the supply chain disruptions, have demonstrated the resilience of India, India's energy portfolio, the mix, and has kind of explained to us through this crisis what Honorable Union Minister also mentioned in his address today, that natural gas as a fuel would be the driver for Viksit Gujarat and Viksit Bharat in the coming few decades, and is going to continue to be a very robust, dependable, reliable fuel source, which despite these current disruptions, especially our stakeholders in Gujarat would have realized that we've had no disruptions as far as our CNG pumps are concerned. We are in fact driving the switch from LPG to domestic PNG. And today, the Morbi ceramic industry is also on the path to recovery after a short disruption. And it has been the availability of natural gas and the diversification of our sourcing strategy as a state and as a country which has helped us to tide over this crisis. Coming to South Gujarat, Honorable Minister mentioned that Gujarat is the energy capital of the country, and South Gujarat is the entry point or the gateway of LNG to the nation. 43% of our regasification capacity in the country today is shared between Petronet LNG at Dahej and Shell Hazira. So, South Gujarat, and this is the right time and the right place to discuss the subject of natural gas as the transition fuel for growth. So what I'll do is just set a context for my fellow panelists to chip in on the future opportunities in the gas economy, where India stands right now, how Gujarat has demonstrated that the share of gas in the energy mix can be risen from a mere certain percentage to 24%, which is the international benchmark. The country aspires for 15% in 2030. That is the vision set by our Honorable Prime Minister. And while being Honorable Chief Minister of the state, how the entire gas economy in the state and the gas grid was developed. And it is a model to demonstrate to the country that it is possible to raise the percentage of natural gas as a clean fuel in the overall energy mix. If we compare our country with the other top 10 natural gas consuming countries in the world today, we realize that we are at a meager 6% of our energy mix, which is about 65 billion cubic meters, while countries like USA, Russia, China lead far ahead. There is a large scope, a large untapped, unrealized potential to increase and step up the integration of gas in the overall energy mix of the country today across sectors. And I demonstrate with examples from Gujarat as well. Now, if you see the growth trajectory of the fuel mix and the share of natural gas consumption from in the past 2.5 decades, from the year 2000, while the country jumped to about over 2 times, Gujarat itself has demonstrated a close to 3 time, slightly less than 3 time increase, which is due to the policy framework, administrative foresight, and like somebody in the opening address had mentioned, having infrastructure placed before demand. So how did Gujarat achieve this? What was Gujarat's growth trajectory? And what was the drivers for this growth in Gujarat becoming India's gas hub? So this is how the gas grid in Gujarat looked like in the year 2001, you hardly see the ones. I'll be showing the current status of the gas grid, which is a networked mesh of gas pipelines crisscrossing the entire state, connecting the source points to the demand centers. What you find here is a mere HBJ pipeline, a small presence, that too again in South Gujarat. So in fact, the story of the gas grid in the state also started from this region. In the year 2000, the mere demand overall of Gujarat was about 16 million, and today it stands at 45 million, as we all know. The gas usage was confined to a few pockets. We really didn't have proper interconnectivity, or the highways for the clean fuel had not been laid till then. So what was required was a massive policy push. What was required was to be more aggressive in laying out the infrastructure without waiting for the demand centers to come up and lay down those clean energy highways. So in the past more than 2 decades, if you realize, pre-2001, we had local gas fields, we had a few pipelines. However, the massive push for infrastructure came in the following decades, post-2001, and the setting up of the LNG terminals like Petronet LNG in 2004, Shell Hazira in 2005. So the decade of 2000 to 2010 saw a sprunging up of demand centers, importing of LNG, on this taking advantage strategically of the coastline of the state, and ensuring that the highways are laid down and potential demand centers are connected. We also ventured into the city gas distribution network. Few of the earliest movers in the country was GSPC Gas, and acquiring the stake in British Gas, which was also Surat. All started in Surat. And 2011 to 15, we find a more aggressive push. And post 2015, the past decade, the network in Gujarat has moved beyond Gujarat. We've acquired GAs outside our territory. We have moved our transmission network through GIGL and GITL beyond our borders. So the network of Gujarat expanded beyond Gujarat in the past decade. So the learning is, as a state, the faith of the administrative establishment, the leadership, the administrative foresight, and putting infrastructure before demand. And this is how the current gas grid in Gujarat looks like. We are almost totally well connected, and the highways were laid out, and what followed was a springing up of demand. The policy initiatives of the state government, a vision document for the statewide gas grid, entrusting a state public sector entity, the GSPC group, with the mandate to be present along the entire value chain of gas distribution, sourcing, trading, transmission, power generation, gas-based, and LNG terminals. So what you find is de-risking the sector for the private players, encouraging industries to take up natural gas as a fuel because of the reliability of having a public sector entity taking in the initial risk of setting up that infrastructure, which is always the most critical segment when it comes to improving the adoption rate of any fuel, and it was natural gas in this case. Next was promoting CNG as an eco-friendly fuel, providing the enabling policy framework for that, encouraging private investment into CNG stations and the PNG domestic drive, like I said, through the acquisition route, through acquiring the British Gas stake, we entered city gas distribution, and now we are beyond Gujarat as well, making our presence felt in states like Punjab, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Maharashtra. So like I said, infrastructure-led demand creation, and as a result of all these efforts and the administrative foresight of the leadership at that point of time, today Gujarat is the natural gas hub of the country with 24% share in gas consumption, which is an international benchmark. Like we said earlier, the country aspires for 15% by 2030. We are already at 24%. The pipeline network is about 18% of the country's total network length. And the regas capacity, the terminals, we all know this. And broadly, the entire CGD space, if you see, we dominate the commercial and the industrial space, the CNI space, again, because the enabling infrastructure was put in place, and initiatives like Vibrant Gujarat were the bridge between industry, potential demand centers, and entities like the public sector entities like GSPC Group. So multiple industries have sprung up whose base is natural gas, whether it is the feedstock, the fuel, or an energy source. So we are right now driven the entire growth in South Gujarat per se, the sectors like chemicals, pharmaceuticals, fertilizers, glass, has somewhere an input of gas. If you see the petrochemical steel, we heard the CEO AMNS in the morning. The AMNS Hazira plant is again one of the major inputs would be natural gas. Like they said, we don't have coal as a raw material, but why are they stationed here? One is the coastline, the other is availability of gas next door through the LNG terminal. Gujarat Gas or GSPC Group's contribution, like I said, is critical for de-risking the initial bottlenecks, which had to be done by a public sector entity. Right now, we have a major share of the city gas distribution network in the state, while there are other CGD entities that are participating. As a state PSU, after the recent merger, in fact, today is our effective date when GSPC merges into Gujarat Gas. We are positioned across the entire clean energy landscape, including gas. Surat, like I said, has always been our flagship GA in the city gas distribution network. We value our stakeholder base and our industrial customers within this region. It has always been at the heart of Gujarat Gas and GSPC Group. South Gujarat per se has always been our dominant strength as a player in this industrial landscape. And just to mention, we've already spoken about Morbi. It's not part of our cluster here in South Gujarat, but has always been one of the backbones for the natural gas industrial customer base of Gujarat Gas. As we get ready for the next decade, and as a newly transformed merged entity, we would like to strengthen our CGD base, expand further, modernize, digitize, transform, use AI, also try and expand the green gas input within the natural gas space by blending with CBG, ensure upstream growth as far as our E&P assets are concerned, and also diversify our portfolio beyond Middle East, which is already diversified. That is how we've weathered this crisis, and we've, as a nation, also learned our lessons. Coming to the emerging opportunities in the gas sector, where I would request inputs from our panelists, is how do you integrate LNG or natural gas in various other sectors? Power, from power, we've moved on to industry. Within industry, we've moved into various sectors. Now is the time to venture into other usages which are demonstrated by countries like China, whether it is LNG for trucking, heavy vehicle movement, storage, bunkering, and that is how you increase the intensity of natural gas as a fuel in the overall energy mix. How CGDs have helped weather the LPG crisis recently, and what is our future role? How do we think natural gas would contribute in the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister for a Viksit Bharat in 2047? And broadly, any other emerging opportunities in the sector which would help power the growth story of our country and ensure positioning natural gas as a transition fuel for growth. I believe the engine driving the vehicle which is going to transport us to the Viksit Bharat vision is going to be powered by the fuel, which is natural gas, which is LNG, which will, this is definitely not an understatement. I believe this has been demonstrated in this current crisis, the reliability, the robustness of our network, and the ability to weather this crisis despite the supply chain disruptions goes to demonstrate that natural gas as a fuel is here to stay. And very easily, India can increase its share of natural gas in the energy mix from the 6% that we have to 15% and beyond. And as GSPC Group, as Gujarat Gas Group, we value our partners and stakeholders, and towards the end would invite your suggestions. and questions as well. Thank you so much for your time and patience. Over to Amit.
Thank you, Avantika ji, for reminding us, I think, how this is, I think, firstly, the right time and right place. Most importantly, the right place, given various things that you mentioned, reminding us how Gujarat showed us the way, infrastructure before demand. Potentially, again, in many of these sectors, I think as a country, we'll have to do that. Also, I think the contribution of GSPC Group and Gujarat Gas towards that. So, thank you for all that. Now, Avantika ji laid out these upcoming opportunities that we have. The way we have also configured the panel is people who know these topics. So Divesh Bhai, I think, is a veteran, has spent 30 plus years, if I'm not wrong, in the industry. He will talk on the first topic, which is storage and bunkering. That we all believe is one opportunity which the 6 to 15, I think there is some potential, lots of potential. Storage, especially, I think the last 2 months have shown, I think that the country potentially needs more. So what are the various options on storage? How to use that to increase gas demand, and similarly on bunkering, that's what Divesh Bhai will cover. So over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Avantika ji and my fellow panelists. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will start from where Avantika ji just left, that 2001, 2025 where we are. And I started my first job with the Gujarat Gas, and in the same time, around 2000, 2001, I would say. And I know that how unintegrated the world was. What I mean to say that it's fairly local in a sense. Everything was been doing within Gujarat, and the world has started to change, and so is Gujarat Gas. And we reached to a point, say, if you part from 2001 to 2025, you are part of a world which was much more integrated than it was ever. To the business model which were relevant in 2001, 2005 has started to become a little irrelevant and bit shaky as you progress further. And that means all the more challenges and of course, an opportunity for all the companies, including Gujarat Gas, state of Gujarat and India. So I think I'm going to talk more around India and also Gujarat with a focus on what Gujarat Gas can do further. And I've been given 10 minutes, two topics, which is a very interesting one, the LNG storages and LNG bunkering. It takes a whole day, but I'm going to very quickly walk you through that, what exactly it means. LNG storage and gas storage. I think the country, as the one of the slide Mr. Avantika has shown us through, was we are the 12th largest gas market in the world, but we are the 4th largest LNG buyer as of now in the world. And if we really compare ourselves with China, Korea, and Japan, who are the three other than that, all of them have gotten a good amount of a gas or an LNG storage been in place. And within a 25 plus million ton of an LNG been procured in and day out by the India, our LNG storage or gas storage is nil. And that means it's a good opportunity. And I'm not trying to say that we have lost it, but it's definitely a time to really progress further from here. So first few, 2 or 3 slides on the what we mean by the gas and LNG storages and what can be done there. So it's in a case for Gujarat, with a focus opportunity around that some of the depleted field also can be used if you want to store the LNG, so or gas rather. Just to touch upon that and we'll move forward. So conventionally, we see all the LNG storages, all LNG regasification terminal have an overground LNG storage tanks, and they are generally the part of your regasification terminal. So you have a conventional above ground LNG storage tanks, which are again the classic, the full containment with an inner 9% nickel, classics a tank size of 800 to 160 to 2000 meter cube. Operating temperatures remain at cryogenic states, generally proven globally in terms of the way the technology works. Cost is $150 million. One tank roughly can in a way store one LNG cargo. I mean, just to keep that thing in our mind. And if I compare that with underground storages, which Japan and Korea have been using extensively, they have been made in a way under the ground. And the reason for them to do that, they want a seismic resilient structure, which can in a way pick up the worst sort of an earthquake. Near zero surface, because they also have a land problem, so they really want to save a lot of land, and so need to do more I would say underground storages. And so the Tokyo and Seoul, you would see the huge amount of an underground storage being built by them. So thing which is working for them, which is pretty expensive. So if I compare that with a conventional LNG storage which we have, they're almost double the price than what we have, conventional tank engine. And that means that what has been working for Japan and Korea is not necessarily going to work for us, and we really don't need to look at it. So good to know what has been going on there, but not really relevant for us. And that means that what is the last column, we say that why we don't need that, because again, we don't have a seismic resist queue, land being available in plenty, cost premium of a double than the conventional storage tank doesn't justify that. And of course, we don't have a driver which Japan and Korea has. And that means we should do what is good for us and which is above the storage tankages. So between underground and over the ground, what we are going to focus more as in a country, or what we should focus on as a country is over the ground. Uh, Now, again, here is a point to keep in mind that when we say overground storage tanks, as in a country, we have gotten almost double-digit terminals, and the amount of LNG storage tanks which we have, if I count them with a number, it's close to 23, 24 tanks, and I'm not counting FSRU there. And 23 or 24 tanks been sitting there, which has been utilized on an average at 30 or 40%. That means half of the tankages, as in a country, we are not using. That again, close to 12 tanks. And that means that the 12 LNG ship can wait or can be stored there. The way we have been structured and made a decision as in a country or as in a gas industry, we reached there where we did have an infrastructure of, say, almost 12 cargo equivalent LNG volumes, but we couldn't use that. I mean, that's something we should learn out of in the past there. Now, gas storage and LNG storage, another comparison that what is between two, how we can do that. So LNG storage, again, state of it remain liquid. In the gas storage, you store it in a gaseous form. A storage vessel in a LNG storage, it's in a classic standard over the ground tank, which you see in a gas underground gas storage. You can use a depleted gas field and can put the gas into that. The Europe has been using that model for decades, I would say, and we do have as in a country, we have a few depleted fields, and as in a state as well, which probably can be looked at when we want to move forward there. Volume scale is a very important one. In a classic LNG tank, you can, as I said, in the one tank, you can store one cargo. Against that, if you do even say half a BCM sort of an underground gas storage, you can easily do the 6 to 8 cargos. That means the volume game is also very interesting one, and that matters eventually to storage cost. So classic cost, it's again a very ballpark number, is in a $20 to $60 per MMBTU cost when you do the conventional LNG storage. Again, if you do the underground, then that can goes down to a single digit, which is not, I would say, impossible to achieve. So that means that as in a country or as in a state, it's important to look at that how we're going to compare them and how we're going to make a decision based on the. And again, this is a very high level view. You need to do a little more detailing before you reach the conclusions there. Yeah. What sort of thing which we now is an important point to probably pick it further from what Avantika is just trying to lay down, that as in a country, as I said, that we are the fourth largest LNG buyer. We have 25 million of LNG being purchased, and we don't have any storages. And what does it mean? That what we had seen in terms of LPG challenges and some of the fear the city gas distributors do had a kind of industrial challenges which we've experienced in the places like less of a Surat, more of a Mumbai, could be avoided as the world progress further from here. Yeah, so that's a very important one. Very quick numbers just to keep it in mind that if you build a 2 LNG storage tank, which close to say 200 to $250 million, that is equivalent to supply 4 billion cubic meter for 45 days. And that means that any major similar issues been coming up in the future, and you have a certain energy been made, it can help you to continue some of the key industrial and domestic activity uninterrupted without having any noise and sacrificing economic growth as well, I would say. So that's another sort of thing which we need to do further. A massive arbitrage value, that's another important point. I think the time between 2001 and 2025, the differences in 2001, the LNG prices were remaining flat. And in 2025, the LNG prices are moving up and down every other month. And that means the volatility required to be managed in an efficient manner. And the only way you can manage the volatility by having a storage where you can keep the relatively economically priced LNG or a gas being stored there. Right? And a very quick number again say that even if in a one LNG storage tank, and you see the price movement of a $2, which is very normal between the summer and winter for the LNG businesses, easily the arbitrage value or in terms of picking up the variations value is in a $14 to $15 million, which is not small by any standard. And I know that's not always been easy to pick up the top and the bottom, but having said that, the way the volatility has been picking up into the market, it's very important to really start to capture those sort of price spikes. Gujarat remain, I think that's a very important point which Avantika has made, and I would like to continue being a Gujarati as well, that it remains, I would say, the front runner in everything which India has done so far, I would say. And that's why you are on even the LNG gateway, city gas distributions, transportation is great, including renewable, which is not the context here. I think everywhere Gujarat did remarkably well, I would say. And that means that here is an opportunity for India to move, or Gujarat to move forward and being a front runner in some of the storages things which we can do. Yeah. And energy security, the last but important point, that it become really important, and how you really store the gas in one other way, making a whole lot of a difference. As I say that we import 50% of an LNG, and with no storage, it's not a good idea. You're having more trouble over there. So very quick thing on a Hazira case, what can be done. I won't really walk through at a length since the time is in a challenge there, but the existing gas fields can be used to store the gas. That's number one. to many of an existing infrastructure you have created to supply or explore the gas or produce the gas from those gas fields can be utilized. That means your greenfield capex can be reduced significantly, and you can use the existing systems been available to make the whole this things work. And third thing, those technologies have been very proven one, and of course it needs more of a feasibility studies, but it's something which can be done tomorrow and can be really looked at, and you make a decision on that. So again, I'm not going to walk through the whole opportunity, but that's something that's important for us to do. So I will cut this storage part over here, that the LNG storage and the gas storage, promising one, and it's time for Gujarat, maybe Gujarat Gas, to really look at that opportunity and do something meaningful there for the state of Gujarat and as well as for the country. Very quick on LNG bunkering. Now, this is the point which again I will pick up, continue to from on a previous slide, that as the country grow and we grow further, we also need to say that what we can leverage to have more jobs and in a more foreign exchange coming to the country. And LNG bunkering is an activity which can be done by leveraging the existing infrastructure and making more money for the country and creating more jobs as well. So in a simple word, it's in a marine fuel. You can use the LNG as a marine fuel into the ship, fueling the ship. Currently, the ship have been using I would say the high sulfur fuel oils or the low sulfur fuel oils. There are guidelines being laid down by the International Maritime Organizations regarding to the certain polluting guidelines, which in a way force or compel the ship liners to use LNG. Across the world, those things have been changing. And that means that here is an opportunity for us to get into the LNG business. Very quick high-level numbers. So almost 1,500 LNG vessels been there into the world as of now. LNG bunkering in India is zero. The nearest competitor for us is in Singapore. It's an only competitor as of now in the nearest region. I would say that's why I would say it's in a low-hanging fruit. And almost 5 million ton of an LNG being sold as we speak in the world. Very quick market view, which is important to understand for us. That so, as I said, the Singapore, the nearest competitor, is doing 0.6 million ton out of a 5 million ton had been done. Singapore has started, if you look at the graph there, started just 4-5 years back, started in 21 from a close the number of 50 million ton has gone from there to almost 12 times in a matter of 4 years. So here is an opportunity where the market has been growing. Our competitor like Singapore has just entered a few years back, and the more you delay, more you're losing in the game. And that means that's a time for the Indian companies to look at the LNG bunkering as an opportunity there. How big the opportunity is in Singapore, just with the 3 vessels. So you need an LNG bunkering vessel to do that business. Has been doing this 0.6 million ton of an LNG bunkering. The forecast, that's so important for us to understand. The business is expected to go from 5 million ton to 15 million ton in next 5 years. And that's the way it has been growing. Almost 200 ports around the world have been doing LNG bunkering, and none of them have been in India. And the way India has been growing, there's a reason for us to really play a role, I would say, over there. There are ways how we can do that. I would say there are very quick. The 3 phases: you start small, you scale up faster, then you don't allow the assets to go stranded there. The truck to ship is the simplest and easiest way to do that. We have an LNG cryogenic tank which you use to fill. Same structure can be used. The only challenge there is that since the volume is too small, you need 50 or 100 trucks really to fill up on one conventional vessel. So it's a good beginning to have a proof of concept to be set up. Can be done at a reasonably low cost and within a minimum efforts, I would say. Same with shore to ship. Again, what does it mean? That you set up a bunkering arm onto the jetty and can keep filling the LNG vessels as and when they have been coming. It's a little capital intensive, but of course it's going to work. And the third phase is when you set up an LNG bunkering vessel, which is a sort of a vessel which can go and fill the LNG directly into the vessel. And that means you don't need to park or berth the vessel onto the berthing jetty. You can do it even in the mid-sea or in fact you go as well. That means from Mundra, LNG bunkering vessels can go to, say, Colombo, or say Pipavav can fuel the vessels. That's exactly how the business has been done. So here is a possibility to work it out that way. And last slide is about why I would see this an opportunity for a Mundra, which is I think the established port. And there's a competitive vacuum. That's the first vertical of the box talks about as is Singapore, 2,500 nautical mile, major hub. It's doing a good business. Then Fujairah, Colombo, Mumbai. None of them have been doing an LNG tank berthing over there. Mundra, it can be done. Why, again, the port is fairly well established within a 200 million ton sort of a business been done. That's the largest port been in India. 33% of Indian container passes through the Mundra, and 50 plus vessels arrive every day. So here's in a captive market been sitting over there. And the last slide is or the last part is on a terminal, which is a very well established terminal, which we have 5 million ton of capacity, 2 tanks been there, QMax, you can fill it up from there. There's no reason for an LNG bunkering to be start at that in as near as possible. So I think I stop here since the time is in a constraint, as Amit has said. Thank you very much.
આપણા સેમિનારમાં અત્યારે આપણા ગુજરાત રાજ્ય સરકારના માનનીય ઉર્જા મંત્રી શ્રી ઋષિકેશ પટેલ સાહેબ અને માનનીય કૌશિકભાઈ વેકરિયા સાહેબ આપણી વચ્ચે ઉપસ્થિત છે. આપણે આપ સૌનું સ્વાગત કરીએ. હું એમડી મેડમને રિક્વેસ્ટ કરીશ. થેન્ક યુ મેડમ.
Thank you, Manish, and thank you, Divyesh ji. So, Divyesh, thank you. I think you laid out the technology choices for both storage, especially storage, and also I think you made a very strong case for India to look at bunkering. I think given how well Singapore is doing, and also a path. I think the point around the time for India is now. I think is well put. Thank you for that. Now moving on, I think as we had initially said, we will talk on 3-4 topics. I think the next topic is the role of city gas. I think we just saw last 3-4 months how DPNG connections, I think LPG was short, but natural gas, I think the government ensured was going into homes. And the role that therefore natural gas plays into, and the CGD entities in India play into energy security, I think is the next topic. I think who better to call than Bashit Bhai, I think who is from Indian Oil Adani. They have 19 GAs across India, not just in Gujarat. And he will just share his thoughts on why CGDs play such an important role and what role can they play going forward in energy security for India. So Bashit Bhai.
Thank you, Amit. Honorable Minister, sir, Madam, ladies and gentlemen, my fellows, my friends on the dais. First, I think today on the auspicious occasion of Gujarat Day, I thank GSPC Group to have invited me on this panel here. The land, first, my warm greetings to all of you on this Gujarat Day. The state represents enterprise, resilience, and leadership. And it has been inspiring the country as well as the world. And I wish that on this Gujarat Day, the 66th Foundation Day, the Gujarat continues to march forward and guide the nation. So very happy Gujarat Day to all. I'll quickly go through. I represent IUAGPL, as I said by Amitji. We have 19 geographical areas. Unfortunately, not anything in Gujarat, but yes, my promoter company, Adani, they have sufficient presence here. We have small presence in Daman next door. But yes, as my friend Divyesh also said, we are a output of Gujarat Gas. Madam, you said everything about Gujarat Gas early days. We were part of Gujarat Gas when it was part of Mafatlal Group. And we saw the gas business started from Surat, this place, Ankleshwar. Some of my old colleagues are already here. And I think the gas, if I remember right, the gas first started in Surat in some temple by giving some first connection from a temple. We also saw the entire network, the gas grid, what you had shown, madam. We have seen it all getting built in front of our eyes. From nothing, from the earlier map, what you had shown, we distinctly remember, and from the cluster of pipelines that today we are. I think we all know this and how it has been built piece by piece, year after year, and with a lot of difficulties, with a lot of great support, government after government. I think this is all because of, and that is why we say that it is a 3G model. Gujarat, growth, and gas, they all go together. Without repeating the numbers, but today, I think this is a state which is number one on the power production, 34% of the gas getting consumed, 23% is the share of gas in its energy consumption, and about 38 lakh domestic connections, which is highest in the country. So today, it is leading the gas and in general, the energy landscape, I would say. And 70% of the India's LNG capacity, and in fact, 85% of the gas which gets imported also lands in Gujarat. So, and why it happened? I think the success story is very, very clear. Madam said that, but I would just repeat that because we saw it early. I think the state saw it very, very early. In 1970, the first city gas distribution started in Vadodara. And then it has also built very strong institutes. I would say strong fundamental institutions it has built, like GSPC, GSPL, Gujarat Gas, now all part of the same family, same group. It also had the integrated approach right from the day one. That is exploration and production it had. It had LNG, it had pipeline, it had CGD, and also the downstream industries. Also, the pro-industry policies of the government, and all, I think fundamentally the exploitation of its 1,600 kilometers of coastline. That's how we have 4 LNG terminals out of the 8 LNG terminals operating in the country. We have 50% of that. Moving to the topic today, the geopolitical crisis. We are the second largest LPG importer, third largest crude oil importer, fourth largest LNG importer. And that makes it completely vulnerable to all the imports or all the kind of deformities what we have in the logistics or the supply chain which can happen in the world. So global crisis, supply disruptions, the price spikes, which puts economic pressure and uncertainty to the economy and to the overall operations in the country. I think that's our energy vulnerability. And when we see that about 50% of, or I would say 70% of the global oil and 55% of the gas which gets traded globally comes through maritime routes. And we have some 5, 6, 7, I think 6 or 7 key choke points what we have. So basically, energy security is not about securing gas or securing oil. It is about managing the choke point. The entire ecosystem needs to be managed. And our, unfortunately, 50%, we have been running on a concentration risk today, that we have something coming only from Hormuz. So we just, what is the impact today? When the 90% of crude oil gets imported, 50% of that comes from Hormuz. 65% of LPG which gets imported, 90% of that is coming from Hormuz. And 50% of LNG what we get, and out of 50, that 55% of that gets through Hormuz. So Hormuz is our choke point. But having said that, Hormuz is just one. If you move, we have 5, 6 more such kind of Hormuz points, which also define as to how we are going to get our energy into the country. And as I said, it is about managing the entire maritime ecosystem rather than the supply contracts and all, because these are the physical choke points through which the gas has to physically flow. And this is not the only time. This war which we are seeing in Iran and US war, this is not the only time. In effect, if just we go about 8, 10 years, last 10 years if we pick up, or last 7, 8 years, 2020 COVID happened, suddenly everything stopped. In 2021, 22, when the post-COVID recovery happened, there was a supply crunch of shipping lines, containers, everything, and there was a problem. In 21, a container ship blocked Suez Canal, everything stopped. 22, Russia-Ukraine war, it happened, and that also created a problem. And now we have, in 25, we have the US-Iran war. So the point is that energy disruptions are no longer isolated events. They are regular, systematic, frequent, and they are driven not only by geopolitics or weather or something. It can just close down by a freak accident like Suez blockage by a container terminal. So operational issues also matter. So we have to prepare. I think this event of 2025, 2026, Iran war, has exposed, or I would say put a reality in front of us. And what is the reality? The reality is that volatility is there. So from stability to volatility, that is going to be a almost like a natural phenomena now, a regular phenomena, because energy is more and more used as a strategic and a tool against each other. There is a disruptions are more frequent because of the conflict. The globalization to fragmentation. That means the rise of energy nationalism. So first time we are reading this terminology as energy nationalism. That people are finding that energy to safeguard their national interest, tariff being imposed, supply being controlled. We are also seeing centralized to distributed systems. That is, the energy is becoming more local, more consumer centric, and more digital in nature. That's why we have rooftop solar getting preference. CGD plays a major role because it's also a distributed system, and similarly are the microgrids. We, whatever we say about EV or any other alternate fuels, fossil fuels are going to stay for a long, long time. Therefore, the energy security is also about energy transition, energy economic competitiveness, and a secure. So it's a trilemma today, what we are facing, and country has to work towards that. What is the role of CGD? An important role in that. First, what happens to LPG? Our country has been converted in last several decades to LPG. Now, that also transformed lives of several Indian families in rural areas through our Ujjwala scheme. Nothing against that. It was the greatest move by the government. But when we see today, when we face the problem today, we are seeing that LPG distribution has shipped to port, to road logistics. It is vulnerable to all three. Apart from whatever blockage is, the price issues which can face to any commodity, but there is also a most difficult task that every unit, every cylinder has to be distributed and supplied to individual houses physically. So it has a complete physicality in the system. That is the biggest risk. Against that, the natural gas, underground pipelines, most safe, not vulnerable to as much as LPG is. It is a continuous online utility system. Therefore, government has rightly seen natural gas as the biggest, I would say, a shock absorber, CGD as the shock absorber, or I would say biggest kind of insurance against any kind of disruption. So government has taken all the steps to basically ensure our households and the mobility. Towards that, we are already working, government is already working on one nation, one grid. Gujarat government had long back, in fact, when the government of India is talking today about one gas, one nation, one grid, I think we always had one state, one grid. And GSPL took the long, I think that decision was taken about 25 years back, and state started building its own network. I think it was about 2,200 kilometers of pipeline network which was built in the state. That became the role model for the entire country. Not many states have so far replicated, but government of India then has started building one nation, one gas grid. Today, 24,000 plus kilometers of pipelines are already operational, feeding 1.65 crores of houses. And these are growing at the rate of almost about 4 lakh per month. This is what we are going, although government wants it much. This is giving a price kind of insurance to people, and it is also giving a supply kind of security to people. So PNG is not just replacing LPG cylinders, it is actually replacing the entire system, LPG supply system, what we have built over last 5 to 7 years. So this is a complete transformation which we are seeing today, that the LPG system which we built over 7 decades today is now getting replaced by an online pipeline system which has to be completely built. Some work has been done, a lot needs to be done. 307 GAs already has been government, PNGRB and Ministry of Petroleum, Government of India, they have already given a license for 307 GAs, which is going to attract about an investment of 3 lakh crores in various segments like pipelines, the CNG, and the biggest is going to be the pipeline, the domestic PNG connections. So it is not only going to reduce dependence on imports, but also it will eliminate the logistic risks, and it will strengthen the India's energy sovereignty. Now, one can question that where is even LNG gets imported, but the domestic production is enough to take care of more than 3 or 4 times what we consume in our domestic and CNG kind of system. Today, CNG, basically what CGD ecosystem represents is accessibility, affordability, and also accountability. 100% of the urban areas are getting covered. 97% of the population theoretically is covered by the license. Hopefully, by the work of all CGD companies, they will also soon come online on the system. Affordability, the stable prices, we are seeing, like today we saw the LPG prices going up by almost 990 rupees for a commercial cylinder this morning, but I think most of the CGD companies are holding on to their prices, and prices of the PNG have not gone up accordingly. So it is almost 40 to 50% cheaper today in industrial and commercial. Also, this is an online utility and not a project specific, one delivery at a time. This is an online system. Therefore, the supplies, the CGD is a more resilient kind of system, what we are building, and that's where the role of CGD is extremely important when it comes to the crisis. Government of India in this crisis has taken several steps. One of them is the Essential Commodity Act that has been invoked to prioritize gas to CNG and PNG segments. Therefore, all the domestic production which is there in the country is directed towards PNG and CNG. So there's not going to be any shortage for PNG and CNG. From March 1, 2026, when this entire conflict came on table, we have connected about 6 lakh, CGD industry has connected about 6 lakh houses. It has about replaced 44,000 voluntary surrendering of LPG has happened, and about 2,800 commercial units. If we put together all that, I think a substantial LPG has been just replaced in last about 45 days to 60 days. I think the pace is little slow. Government is not really happy with the performance of CGD companies in that sense. They aim to put about 6 lakh new household connections every month. Against that, we are doing very close to about 3 lakhs. So we are just doing about half. I think government wants it to do more. And because CGD government strongly feels, and it is a fact, that CGD shields citizens from the volatility. Way forward, quickly, I think first and foremost, to tide over this current problem, expansion of PNG is must. So every district, every state, every town, whosoever is working, including us, I think we have to expand PNG. Whatever needs to be done by government or any stakeholders, I think they have to be done. Simple. Second is the diversification. Whatever gas can we produce in the country, whether it is exploration and production, whether it is CBG, whether it is CBM, whether it is coal gasification, anything which produces gas should be produced so that we remain self-reliant. Third, as Divesh said, infrastructure for building storage for security. I think that's very, very important. And lastly, the green fuels, we have to go towards more and more green fuels to make it sustainable over a long term. So it is about the resilience, flexibility, and self-reliance. That is what this entire sector says. And in the end, I would say it is in this volatile world, energy security is no longer about how much a nation can access. It is about how much reliably we can connect every home, every vehicle, and every industrial unit. Energy is delivered, when energy is delivered through CGD, it ceases to be a commodity. Actually, it is a guaranteed service. Therefore, CGD is today probably the best tool to handle any kind of crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Bashit Bhai. I thought I knew everything about the gas industry in India, ये जो टेम्पल का स्टोरी आपने सुनाया, I hadn't heard it before. So thank you for increasing my knowledge. But thank you also for putting the current geopolitics into perspective. Volatility is here to stay. I think that stuck with me. This issue around energy nationalization, distributed systems rather than concentrated systems. You made some very important points, and just I think pushing on this point that CGD is potentially, again, I'm not saying, I'm not fully sure, but I'm saying potentially a massive shock absorber to this kind of geopolitics. So thank you for all that. Now, again, one other sector, I think we spoke about bunkering, we heard about CGD. One other sector that has a huge potential to increase usage of gas in India, especially LNG, and to replace diesel is for long haul trucks, large size trucks that travel long distances. We know hydrogen is some distance, using LNG for that. And again, also gets back into the theme of LNG as a transition fuel. And from there, I think on that talk about that, I think we have Digvijay from Delivery. They are one of the pioneers in terms of using LNG trucks for long hauls. So he will just talk about quickly what's the potential and what do they see as opportunities and challenges in the segment.
It's good Amit used the word quickly. I just have 2 slides, and that's directly proportional to the number of years we've been dealing with LNG. So, a little bit about us. We are a 15-year-old company and a logistics company, one of the key shining stars of Startup India. We are valued currently at around 35,000 crores. We started off with a food delivery focused on only last mile, and then we pivoted towards e-commerce logistics. We were only doing last mile logistics for a very long time, and then we finally pivoted towards providing intra-city transportation also and warehousing to all the big wigs. Initially, we were only focusing on using the facilities of our partners, the fleet owners in India. And then we very quickly realized that we need to cull out all the efficiencies in transportation, right? Hence, we started buying our own trucks. We did not buy the traditional trucks, the 32 feet multi-axle trucks which you see on the road. We started investing in a new product for India. It's called a tractor trailer. We started partnering with Volvo back in 2019. So basically, if you have ever been on the highways driving with your families and have seen a long tractor trailer, that belongs to Delivery. From 2019 to 2025, we added 900 such trucks in our fleet, and they were primarily diesel run, right? So we cracked the first part of it, that we brought in a better functioning product. But we said, no, we need to do more, right? We need to take out even more efficiency from these trucks by reducing the cost of operating these trucks. And that's when we started focusing on alternate fuels. I'll be very frank, LNG was not our first option. We started looking at EV. We purchased 2 EV trucks and we started operating them in the southern part of India. Alongside, we also purchased some LNG trucks. Very quickly, we realized that India had already done a lot in terms of LNG infrastructure, especially in the western part of India and the southern part of India. In the last 1.5 years, we have already acquired or purchased 50 trucks, and we plan to do more, depending on how well you guys provide us LNG with, right? So why LNG? If you look at logistics as a sector, right, it runs on very thin margins, and it is one of the most polluting sectors in the world. So we, as a company, we want to improve efficiencies in terms of reducing cost of logistics, but also reduce our carbon footprint. Hence LNG, right? And why LNG over EV? I just spoke about that. Even though these LNG trucks are close to 35% more expensive than our diesel tractor trailers, we believe that we need to participate in the development of the ecosystem. And we need to push for alternate fuels in the transportation industry in India. Cost efficiency benefits is what I have already alluded to. So why I have added this column on how we started, with these 2 points, they also highlighted a lot of these the challenges which we face. We started with strategic partner identification. We did not find many. So that's why we had to depend on a European company to give us the product. There are no OEMs in India which are making such products. Operational trials, why is it only restricted to western and southern part of India? Because the infrastructure just does not exist for refueling. If you come to, so I have been talking about these tractor trailers, right? Now, when it comes to transportation and how transportation is going to adopt more and more of LNG, we have to understand why is it so difficult for the transportation sector to adopt a new technology? Why have we been running those age-old trucks for years on? I'll just bring to light an interesting conversation which we were having at MORTH, the Ministry of Road Transport, last week, ma'am. So the secretary there was giving us a presentation. उन्होंने बोला कि इतने नेशनल एक्सप्रेसवे बन गए हैं, इतने नेशनल हाईवे बन गए हैं, but the average speed of a truck is not increasing, right? And hence the type of truck is not changing. These trucks, which are the tractor trailers, they are worth crores of rupees, and you can only take out the efficiencies from this truck when it operates at a higher speed, when the turnaround time between point A and point B keeps reducing, right? So those are the challenges, right? LNG in transportation is just one lever. LNG has proven its worth in transportation. Transportation is ailing because of other things, not because of LNG use करना है या EV use करना है या green hydrogen use करना है. As a matter of fact, LNG is competing with a lot of different innovations. And like all of my fellow panelists have said, the time is right? So time is actually right now. We have to act on ensuring that requisite policy changes are put in place. Requisite infrastructure is put in place to ensure that there is availability of LNG, to ensure that the quality of the LNG which we are getting is up there. Otherwise, transportation will pivot to some other technology. And we were just discussing during our ride here, ma'am. Electrification is something which both my seniors said that is a big sort of a competitor to LNG. So the time is now to make sure that those policy changes are put in place. So what are those policy changes? We have to ensure that these new products come into our market, the truck products. But then again, it's an investment. How do you make transporters like us, how do you push us to go and buy these trucks, right? It's very difficult. So you have to ensure that the speed limits which are there on the national highways and the national expressways are revised. You have to ensure that all of the blockages in terms of at the tolling booths are etc are solved for. On the other side of it is, how do you ensure that LNG is made available in a timely manner, right? I understand all of you guys will work towards putting in place that infrastructure, but there is a solution which is operating in Europe. It's called the skid-based LNG, ma'am. It is already allowed for the mining industry in India, right? So what it entails is it just allows a modular development of a fueling facility anywhere in our geography without waiting for the entire LNG infrastructure to be put in place. So I think if that is allowed for the transportation sector, it will enable quick adoption. It will enable people to invest more in these trucks, and that's where the demand will come. right? So hence the supply demand problem, right? So that's how you solve for it. Something very dynamic will need to be done. Otherwise, LNG might lose the sort of race against other innovations. That's my 2 cents. Thank you for your time, and thank you for having us here, ma'am.
Thank you, Digvijay. Very, very insightful, very pushy, and thanks for being the pioneers, by the way, for using LNG for trucking. I think you have at least established proof of concept that this works, and this push that the time is now. Infra clearly is the biggest bottleneck, and you offered one solution, or one potential solution in form of LNG skids to solve that. So that largely concludes the initial set of thoughts. I think it's very clear. I think we started by saying that Gujarat has shown us the way in terms of adoption, and potentially will also show us the way from 6 to 15 for the country. I think Gujarat is already somewhere in the 23-24% range. So it's very, very clear. We spoke about 3 or 4 sectors. We spoke about storage, on how that is important, but clearly I think CGD, use of gas in transportation, whether in bunkering or for long haul trucks, getting into homes, more and more CNG. Again, in India, if we see PVs, passenger vehicles, I think there is good penetration. But if you start going to LCVs, when you start going to trucks, again, smaller trucks, I'm saying, not larger trucks, I think the penetration is very, very low. Commercial segment, as we look at how many restaurants, hotels, I think they are connected, it's very low penetration. So clearly the growth will come from CGD and use of gas for transportation segment. And now I will possibly, I think, do a round of questions with the panelists. If we have time, I will also open for the audience. If you want to ask any questions, again, think of those, and then we can take it from there. In terms of questions, why don't we start with you, Dvesh bhai? With you, I think bunkering, clearly a very interesting idea. India is zero. Even if we do 1-2 MTPA, let's say in 3-4, it's a big deal. But and storage, definitely, I'm saying, is the need of the hour. But I think let's talk, maybe start with storage. $150 million for a tank, one cargo. Do you think it is, the commercials are attractive enough for someone to invest, or I think someone needs to be done to make the commercials attractive enough? Otherwise, I'm saying, why would an investor, why would even a corporate entity, a listed corporate entity like a Gujarat Gas or any private person invest if they don't see the money? So is this, I think you mentioned about there is arbitrage. Is that arbitrage enough? Or does something like an ISPRL needs to be done by the government? I think, what are your thoughts on commercials for storage?
Thanks, Amit. I mean, honestly, it's a complex commercial question in a way. Huh? The reason being, storage as a business around the world had been, I mean, when I'm talking of a storage for an LNG, has been done not as a business, but done by the government, I would say. So when you look at Japan and Korea, which I've been talking about, largely the investment has been made by the government, and that cost has been socialized in one other way over the entire economy, right? So how you've been looking at the storages in Indian context? Huh? So say if you're thinking of a private capital, trading companies specifically, Trafiguras, Gunvor and Vittel of the world, they have their own huge storage capacity been built onto the different ports, I would say, for the oil and oil products. That has been going on for the decades. LNG, I'm aware of a company like Trafigura. I'm very keen to build an LNG terminal storages in Asia, right? So that's an appetite they have for that. In India, a private capital, I really struggle in my mind that, why private capital should be interested into doing that. I think the more important question for India is that, and look at even the LNG terminals, I would say 90% of an LNG capital is not a private capital, it's a public capital, right? And that means, and again, the 50% of an LNG demand, more than that, is in a public demand. And in that sense, I would say that it is more from managing the way we do business of an energy in the country. Government never do business, but what I mean is that the way they manage that business, and you manage it in a manner where you have a minimum shock pin coming to you as well as to the economy. It is important to build a bit of a buffer into the system in one other way. And that means that I would say more public than a private positioning of capital required, number one, and two, that how you really socialize the cost is a question which government has to answer. It's not so difficult in my mind. Yeah? So no private money there, I would say at least, should be coming for an LNG storage.
So the government needs to move forward and provide the capital. socialization again can be thought through, but I'm saying some of these companies can do execute, because obviously the government cannot execute.
Can be. I can in fact add on a little twist over there. That so you can always have an LNG storage tank been built within a certain amount of an equity and a storage right been given to a private companies, and by doing that you are sharing capital risk as well as in a return. So
Like ISPRL, I think, like
precisely.
they have done on crude in
Precisely,
ISPRL.
precisely.
No, no, fair point. No, but good thought. I think again something for, again, I know a committee has been set up. I know Devendra Bhai is part of that also on storage. So some good thoughts for you, Devendra Bhai, as you go and deliberate on behalf of India on that topic. Maybe Bashit, coming to you. There is mics there as well, by the way. Yeah. So I'm saying, just coming to you. I think now I will ask a bit of a controversial question. I think we all know that DPNG in some pockets, especially I think where densities is low, especially if you start going to rural, it will not make commercial sense for anyone to actually put. And yes, and while I think yes, India has enough domestic gas, APM gas, whatever you put in DPNG, I think gets taken away from some segment in India, and we have to import LNG. So that's one. And so for some segments, is electrification of cooking a better solution? Given I think the amount of coal reserves we have, given the electricity grid has already reached now all our households, including rural households. So, what are your thoughts on electrification versus CGD? And should India do both? Should India prioritize one? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Okay, so see, first thing, let me just clarify here that first is on the domestic PNG domestic side. See, we have our domestic production at about 95 MMSCMD today, and our consumption is about 30. That includes even the CNG. So we have almost about 3x times we can expand till we have to really import the first molecule for the domestic and CNG. Till this crisis happened, actually the CNG was also supported only about 35-40% only through the domestic. The rest 60% was coming from LNG. So I'm sure this we are amidst the crisis. Therefore, the prices are not the right benchmark. These are not the right benchmarks. But if I feel that maybe over a period of time, in a good time, CNG can definitely shift to the market-dominated prices with some corrections on the taxation. So domestic, one has to, government has to prioritize and insulate the domestic, which definitely through domestic production, sources of production, it can do easily for ages and ages. That's one. Number two, on the electrification side, it is happening. Whether government does it by design or by policy or through, it is happening. We have seen electrification of our own electricity getting into our kitchens through microwaves and other kind of thing, but it is a, rather than a technology or a fuel kind of choice, it is more of a behavioral or attitudinal, or I would say a generation kind of shift it will happen, which will happen over several decades. So I would say for right now, the only option is we chose LPG in the first few decades, in the last few decades. The crisis has taught us to shift towards PNG. I think that's the right way, and PNG has to go into a massive kind of way. We have to do the pipelining connection of houses to make people insulate from this LPG and the external crisis. So I would say that electrification will happen naturally, but PNG will happen through a drive policy mechanisms.
Fair point. Fair point. I think you're saying LPG push, it will in any case need a lot of, I think we spoke about how many connections we are able to do. It will need a lot of push. And yes, electrification in any case will happen through a generation shift. And over a period of maybe 10, 15, 20 years, both will continue and change. I think the energy mix of India, I think again, more electricity also I think is needed, as well as DPNG is also needed. And given how large India is, potentially both are needed. Avantika ji, maybe I'll come to you next. I think we saw last few months, I think despite all the push, I think this 6 lakh versus 3 lakh, I think in terms of run rate on DPNG connections, is that the limit, or can more be done by anyone, I'm saying government, municipalities, the CGD companies to increase this run rate. Otherwise, because if you start calculating 10 crore households, this is the run rate. I think it again takes maybe 15 years to connect all of India. But anything that can be done to increase this run rate.
I think the kind of policy decisions and the support from the government administration, timely clearances, and the push that the CGD industry has got post this crisis has been unprecedented. And the pace at which we are moving is many times of what we do in our business as usual scenario. However, there are certain bottlenecks in terms of availability of labor, equipment, manpower, and the geopolitical crisis has affected our own value chain as well. I believe if things improve and the situation normalizes and these bottlenecks are removed and the policy support, the overall administrative support that the industry has got and the priority that the sector has received recently, if that push continues, we can do much more and maybe achieve that 6 lakhs and go beyond. The only thing is the crisis and the opportunity which the crisis has presented should the momentum should continue and the priority to the CGD sector will have to be an ongoing process and the business as usual and not just something which comes and goes as the crisis abates. So it'll have to become the norm and we will have to as a policy or as a state support to PNG and natural gas as an alternative, like Bashirji mentioned in his presentation, a shock absorber and the more resilient fuel and towards self-reliance. I think this will have to be the way to go. Thank you.
So few more unlocks, you're hopeful this can increase. But more importantly, I think what I really like what you said in terms of this becoming a norm rather than a response to crisis. I think that we have done. I think that is most important, and how our CGD companies actually create this as a norm. And not just CGD companies, but the approving authorities, the people, the municipalities who are giving approvals. How do they make this as a norm? I think will be very important to connect our households. No, thank you. Very interesting. Digvijay, I'll come to you next. You said LNG obviously is competing with other technologies. I think electric EV, I think potentially hydrogen soon. If is infrastructure the only bottleneck, or are there 2, 3 more in your mind? I think you said the time is now. If we give you a magic wand to solve 2, 3 things for LNG to win, I think that is what all of us want LNG to win. What would those be?
See, Amit, so there are some restrictions under which we are operating. Restrictions in terms of what is the product available in the market, right? When I say product, it's the what kind of a truck is available. There are not very many offerings. There are 1 or 2 offerings in the market. So to unleash LNG in this, we have to ensure that that product operates freely, right? And that product operates at the best possible efficiency. The other, so for that infrastructure, yes, we cannot allow this truck driven on LNG to operate like a diesel truck, which takes multiple stops, which operates at an average speed of 60. It just can't happen. It won't be viable. So infrastructure in terms of providing the roads and providing the speed limits to this truck to operate freely. Availability of fuel is something which is critical at scale. The fuel is available in western parts and the southern parts, but for the industry to adopt more and more of these products, availability at scale is very important, right? The short-term fix is the skid-based solution is a short-term fix, right? We cannot own that refueling infrastructure, but we believe that we as a early adopter of this technology can invest in the short term to provide that evidence that LNG in transportation works, right? Alongside development of the fueling infrastructure. I think these two things are the most critical things, right? Letting the product which is available out there operate freely, and providing the fuel to that product.
So trucks and providing infrastructure at scale to provide, and not just infrastructure, but providing the fuel at scale and all over India, and potentially a coordinated push by not just one company, but a, let's say, a group of companies. Because again, we know we operate, yeah, though it's like LNG is open to anyone, you can open anywhere LNG fueling, but a coordinated push might be useful.
Yeah, so we were the first ones to bring in these tractor trailers for e-commerce operations, and now there are multiple partners, right? Now we strongly believe that we have provided that initial evidence that LNG works for transportation, right? And the demand side will get addressed. It's the supply side which we need to focus on in the short term.
So put the supply maybe also ahead of demand, and demand will come in any case, given the advantages we all know that LNG for transportation has. So maybe I'll open up audience. If there are any questions, you can tell your name, you can tell who you want to ask the question to, and what's the question. Anyone in the audience? Yes, sir, please. Is there a mic? We cannot hear you, sir. The mic possibly is not on.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Piyush Desai from Larsen and Toubro Hazira. My question is to Mr. Divyesh Desai, but before that, like we use extensively piped natural gas for our day-to-day operation. Even we are one of the fabricator of LNG equipment for GCC countries and USA. So this piped natural gas, when 6th of March, Gujarat Gas has communicated as a crisis, so we were worried, we panicked, and then we started another alternatives like induction heating, diesel-fired furnaces, and all those things. Now you said about the bunkering or storage of that. So can you guide me on that? So we have plenty of land there. So as a private thing, we can for our day-to-day operations.
I think you have to pay me consultancy charges for that. No, anyway, no, yeah. I would say, joking apart, bunkering is not on a very, bunkering is meant for a different sort of businesses, I would say. So I'm not trying to, I mean, L&T is way more in terms of the way you've been doing so. But it generally goes with people who are owning the infrastructures, which are the port and an LNG terminal. So I would really talk more about bunkering. But storage, there are people who in a way using the gas as an through the by storing the LNG at their own plant. I mean, a lot of people in Morbi has been said to doing that thing. Probably that's something which you can look at. But in the challenge for you could be in that case is that the amount of money you are spending on LNG storages, it's a capital cost, against the once in a 2 year or a year things like this which you have been experiencing, and the cost which you're incurring out of that require to be weighed in. And if that really makes sense for you, because I'm not sure how the number works in your business, because if it's really very critical to have a gas at a given point in time, not only in terms of money, but maybe reputation for that matter, then it's worth to really look at that. So I think you're the best judge, but eventually it's in a cost benefit, and the amount of cost you've been incurring in terms of building the storage is required to be weighed in against the cost you're going to incur.
Yeah, thank you. Our operation is mainly dependent on the PNG because.
Thank you, Piyush ji. Any other questions? Any other questions from the audience? No, if no, I'm very happy to. Yes, please.
Hello, myself Krishna Kshatriya. I have a question from LNG term, like you talk about the LNG trucks. Right now we are having policies which are like EV policies are there, where we are also focusing on EV vehicles, and also hydrogen policy has been established, and there are many players who are right now working on hydrogen concept also. And the main concern is that during this energy transition, there are so many players So will it affect the LNG infrastructure? Because when we talk about the infrastructure, there will be four players simultaneously coming into the market. There will be, we are talking about the EV infrastructure that is going to be built, charging stations and all that stuff. Even we will be having a big infrastructure for hydrogen, as so many research and many industries are coming in hydrogen technology. So what you can say that what will be the LNG infrastructure in between this type of
So Digvijay, the supply side is asking that if I put supply, what's the risk?
I got the question. Like I said, innovations compete with each other, right? But the advantage LNG has in this particular use case, which is line haul transportation, green hydrogen does not exist. EV electrification has not happened because most of the policies which you are alluding to are purchase-based incentives, not infrastructure incentives. So the infrastructure is not coming up. LNG infrastructure is already there, at least in west and south. That just needs to scale up. That's why I said time is of the essence, right? If LNG can take center stage and lead, then it will be difficult for other innovations to compete.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great question. Yeah, please. Eventually, it's all about economics and risk. So, especially in Gujarat, I think which other state will talk about that. So, thank you for that.
Hello, madam. I am Mr. Neeraj Modi. I am a CNG franchisee from Gujarat Gas. And I would like to ask that does Gujarat Gas have any policy of opening more LNG retail outlets in our state, and what will be the procedure for that?
Okay. So first of all, thank you for being part of the larger Gujarat Gas family. You are also connected by being our franchisee. And to your question on Gujarat Gas and our policy for LNG retail, yes, we are proactively looking at expanding our footprints in the LNG retail segment. Right now, we would shortly be coming out with an AOI. You are free to participate, and it'll be open for franchisees. To respond to what Digvijay ji has been saying about LNG for trucking, I really appreciate the holistic perspective that you gave us, where while we would be pushing for setting up the infrastructure, but there are larger enabling factors which would lead to greater adoption for a stakeholder like you. So that gives us a way to think about it beyond just our immediate scope as a company in the gas segment, but as trying to see how we could be one of the voices to advocate for some policy reforms, whether it is Ministry of Road Transport, and very, very pertinent points. So just pushing LNG retail as far as that will be our business perspective. But if we really want to transform this industry and improve usage of LNG in this critical segment of the economy, it will have to be beyond that. So thank you for bringing that point to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe one more question, one last one. If anyone wants to ask, yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, I am Nanji Baldania. I am from Apar Industries. So I have a question for Avantika ma'am. So currently, actually, we are looking for replacement of LDO, and we are looking for this PNG. So we are discussing with GGL. So as far as you have said about this long-term contract, okay. So terms and condition of this long-term contract, some are very firm, not flexible. So considering the business exigency and the scenario, because in current VUCA world, it is very difficult to give commitment for, let's say, 10 years or 15 years. Okay. So this long-term contract are on like fuel base or the this one crude linked contract are there. But is there any possibility on the lock-in period or whatever the terms and conditions are there, standards?
Thank you for your question, but I think we'll be discussing a lot beyond what is relevant to everybody in the audience if we get into individual terms and conditions of a potential contract. First of all, thank you for showing interest in switching over to natural gas, and I believe we would be able to be a little more flexible. I would ask my team, Devendra Bhai will connect with you just after this session and see how we can work it out together. But this crisis has also offered an opportunity for us to encourage customers who've been with alternative fuels to switch over, like from propane to natural gas. And we would also like to be a little more flexible and see how we can, expand our customer base. And we definitely would not like to appear to be rigid as a business partner. And I would request my team to get in touch with you just after the seminar. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you again for asking questions. Manish bhai, time is up? Or time for one more? Okay. I will ask this one, and Bashir, I will ask this one to you. I think we have spoken a lot about new segments. I think we have spoken about bunkering, storage, LNG for transportation, also spoken a bit about DPNG. But our core, at least for city gas or for gas, I think eventually is industries. And at some level, I'm saying what CGD, I think the core in terms of 80% of volumes is actually CNG or commercial. So these three segments, I think auto, I'm saying small auto, not large auto, auto, commercial, industrial. They still, there is, do you see there is a significant potential for growth there as well? And what can the companies, what can the ecosystem do? The companies, the government, the industry, I think there are many, many representatives here to capture that.
Yeah. See, traditionally, if we see the Gujarat gas model, when it started, when the company was formed, the initial model was focused primarily on supplying gas to houses, commercial units, and industries. CNG probably was not on the radar ever. And that's how, if you see the initial first 10, 15 years of Gujarat gas, maybe a handful of stations were there in Ankleshwar and Surat. Later, where after this entire CNG transformation happened because of the IGL Supreme Court mandates, and later it was picked up by other kind of metros. And that's how the CNG program started. So it was, I think, the late 90s or early 2000, then the CNG actually started happening in the country. And later when the 2018 onwards, when the CGD was rolled out in the entire country, the CNG becomes a very quick kind of, quick to implement, quick to monetize, and overall it sets into the system, because you can do it with pipeline, without pipeline, it can happen. So it naturally, the economics works in favor of CNG, so it took off. But I think time has come. This crisis has again brought us back to the table and saying that yes, we were meant to be a pipeline company. We were supposed to go and connect each and every house, commercial unit and industrial units. And therefore, we should go back and start focusing on the pipelines. So I think that's where we will see this transition, a shift. Maybe, unfortunately, it has been done through a crisis mechanism, but now we are all back to doing the work for which we were there. More and more connections will happen. Hopefully, this entire program of LPG replacement will continue. I think most of the industrial fuels will also get replaced under this. If we continue for next few years, we will see a lot more focus on the PNG, and therefore the share of CNG, which is almost about 70% in most of the companies, I think this will go down, and we can be about 50-50, or even the PNG can go in certain areas where the industries are less. The PNG will probably be much more than even CNG. CNG also faces the crisis. Earlier what you said, the CNG is also facing a heat from the electric transition, EV transition, but I think the time is good that we are building up on the PNG volumes, and ultimately at net we will not have any kind of loss. Volumes will go multifolds because the kind of populations we are all dealing, 150 crores this has become actually after this crisis and the way the government has acted on and given us the guidelines, we are almost becoming an electricity company. We are like electricity. The gas, truly we have become the utility for the first time. We have to connect each and every building what comes our way. So there is no choice today. So the choice, if a person does not have a choice between LPG and PNG, if PNG is there, then PNG is the fuel. LPG is not the fuel. That's the rule of the game. Therefore, we are truly a utility. Every house is our potential customer, and we need to connect them. Therefore, I think focus is back on PNG, and we will have more and more PNG volumes grow. We will see this volume grow multifold from here.
Thank you. Crisis, using this crisis as an opportunity, I think is the main theme. So I think we'll end here. I'll just quickly summarize 4 or 5 things at least that I took away. I think different people have took away different things. But the first thing I think I took away is that this vision that our Honorable PM had laid out of 15, which looked very audacious at the time, I think that he envisioned it. I think there is a potential path to it. No better place, as Avantika ji I think said in the beginning, to talk about this than the birthplace of possibly the industry in the country, and Gujarat, which has shown us the way. I think the third thing I took away is that there is opportunity across segments. I think there is opportunity to replace, I think, current fuels that industry uses. I think we spoke about LDO of diesel that the long haul trucks use or auto. There is a significant potential across segments. And the fourth thing I took away is that yes, there are some policy tweaks needed, but a lot of it is to do with our companies, with a lot of people in this room. I think the industry, I think a lot of action on how we use this crisis as an opportunity and how we make this a norm, I think has to come from people in this room and beyond. I think these were the 4 things I took away. Thank you for my fellow panelists for sharing your thoughts. Thanks a lot. It was very insightful. Thanks to all of you for being an engaged audience, for asking all the great questions. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, it was a very insightful discussion, and I believe it was very focused on the seminar theme. So I really thank entire panel and our Honorable MD Madam. And I think let's have a big round of applause for the panel. And same way, Amit, like audience is also like, we should have a round of applause for audience itself. So you also asked a very pertinent questions. So thank you all. Now it's time for some memory. Yeah. First, I will request Naveen Sharma ji to give a memento to Honorable MD Madam. Yes. I request Ravi to come forward for Divesh ji. I request Dinesh Lad for Basit Dolakia ji. I request Dheeraj Gaur. Special round of applause for Dheeraj Gaur for putting all hard work. And I request Rahul Agrawal to come forward to give memento to Sri Amit ji. Amit ji, you have done an excellent job, yeah. Great. So thank you all. Ma'am, we request for a group photo. One group photo, yeah. Okay. Thank you. With this, we conclude the seminar here. Thank you all.